Welcome back for part two. Right, so Stephen Fry, English guy. He suffered from mental health. No one would have never known he suffered from mental health. Jim Carrey suffered from mental health. Jim Carrey, again, no one would have known. Said the guy was just about laughs, really funny. Come on now, Jim Carrey looked like a threat. So when people say, oh, they should all be locked up and all that, does Jim Carrey look like a threat? Is Jim Carrey a threat? What's that guy that died now? Robin Williams. I believe he died because he felt that he wasn't able to see his family as his children, and over custody and child support and things like that. Robin Williams. But again, would you feel Robin Williams was did he deserve to did he need to be locked up as well? Was he a threat? And this ties into a guy in America called Ben Shapiro. Okay, he was having a conversation with Piers Morgan about guns. And Piers Morgan's like, we need to get rid of the guns and this and that. And then Piers Morgan brought up the subject of what was it now? The shootings. There's been quite a few shootings of Caucasians going into schools and basically shooting up the whole school. And they're directing that towards mental health. All of a sudden now, that's the epitome of mental health. And Piers Morgan saying, but what about these guys that went into a school? And Ben Shapiro is saying, well, basically what we should have done really is the minute we knew they had mental health, they shouldn't have been able to buy guns, prevent people with mental health from buying guns. And this is where I want to tie into something else that I want to say, is that people assume, again, like I said in the previous video, that you can suddenly spot someone with mental health. You can't. It's all around us. There's a lot of people with mental health. There's more than what you know. I think is it 1 in 4? I think it's 1 in 4 people suffer from mental health, which is actually quite a lot if you do the maths on it. Okay, but if, like I said in my previous video, if you're able to hold down a job with it, then there's no reason for you to get a diagnosis, really. If you're able to hold down a job, it doesn't even have anything to do with friends or girlfriends or partner or whatever. That doesn't even come into it. It's if, can this person hold down a job? They can. Don't worry about the whole mental health. We don't need to talk about that. And let's face it, why would you today? Why would you come out today and say I suffer from mental health? What do you gain from it? What do you gain from coming out and saying you suffer from mental health? Depending on what family you have, they might, for example, in my situation, I had people saying to me, no, look, it's not true, so shut up or whatever. I poured my heart out to a certain family member when I was young, and two of them were like, oh, look, I'm really sorry to hear that. And then I went away and I heard rumors coming back to me that same family member said, oh, Luke's gay. And I'm like, gay? What the hell? So why would you suddenly pour your heart out if there's certain, especially if you're from like a tough family where everyone thinks they're tough and this and that, and I say think because I'm going to get into that in a minute, but yeah, getting back to it, why would you then come out, not come out, but why would you then kind of explain to your family that you may have mental health, you may feel depressed? Because remember, let's get it straight, there's things like depression, which is quite common. Okay, most average people will experience depression. If, say, someone, God forbid, someone passes away that's close to you, you may go through, say, 5 months of bereavement, yeah, of you feeling really low or whatever. It's a normal thing, okay? So yeah, you did experience a slight bit of mental health, but that's kind of a normal thing. For people with, like, say, chronic depression, they've always been depressed. They might have been depressed from a child, so they've always been trapped inside mental health. They've never got to experience normality. Think of it almost like a rose that's growing, okay? And what mental health does is it halts the growth of that rose. A normal rose will grow, it will grow, it will grow, and then let's assume it gets trapped by something, and that something is depression. Yeah, it's still grown to quite a large. It's still grown to quite a significant amount, okay, whilst that depression holds it, okay. Once whatever is interfering with it gets removed, okay, it then continues to grow again. With something like depression, it's never allowed to grow from its roots, So it's always like in a state of seeds in a sense. Okay. So someone turning around and saying, well, yeah, I know what depression's like because someone passed away and I was really low, or my girlfriend left me and I was really low. It's not the same thing, because someone with mental health may have experienced that all their lives, as opposed to you experiencing it, say, for 6 months when you were 18 years old, or for 6 months when you were 13 years old. There's a big difference. There's a big difference in me being born in depression and me developing in it, because I had a friend of mine that developed depression at, say, I think she was in her 30s when she developed depression, but you had a perfectly good life prior to that. So all of the nurturing and the kind of the love that you needed as a child to make you a strong adult is there. That's what I'm trying to say about the rose. It's there, that the roots are powerful. It's there. That's a lot different than someone that was always experienced depression, things like chronic depression. Again, there's things like schizophrenia, bipolar, borderline personality disorder. um there's many of there's I mean, those are the most common ones I can think of off the top of my head. But there's, you can't just throw everyone into the same, what's the word, label. You can't label everyone with the same branch, kind of thing. It just doesn't work that way. I think it's the Columbine massacre where those teenagers went into the school and shot up the school. You can't then suddenly say, you can't then throw everyone into the same group as the Columbine massacres or murders, whatever. You can't say like we're all like that person because they suffer from mental health. It simply doesn't work that way, guys. It doesn't. And you need to be a little bit more intelligent about it. Right, getting back to the whole um, being around, getting back to the whole people being scared to come out to their family. Yeah, some people are scared to come out to their family because they may have mothers and fathers that have led them to believe that it's a sign of weakness. If my son can't get out of bed to go to school or go to work, he must be weak. I must have had a really weak child. And that's sad. That's the reason why we have a lot of people, and again, you can kind of tie it into LGBTQ community. That's why the reason why we have a lot of people with mental health that are afraid, that they're kind of forcing themselves out of bed and they're smiling. Hello, mom, I'm ready to go to school now. And they feel quite depressed inside. They feel, and as an adult, again, the same thing, where they're getting up every day and they're going to work, but inside of them, they feel really down. They're hearing voices saying, why don't we just end this? Why are we doing this? And things like that. And there's no one to talk to because people around them may tell them that they're weak and, grow a pair of balls and man up and all of this kind of stuff. And this is why we have a lot of people today that are afraid of being honest around people, to the people that are around them. I think they did a statistic in London, and I think they said 70, because they did this building in London, and I think they had 75 people on the top of the building looking like they're about to commit suicide. And they did it for a reason. They did it to illustrate, I think it was 70 something men per week in the UK kill themselves. That's a high statistic. 70 something men per week kill themselves by jumping off of buildings. And I think they said the last portion of that is black, because white people will probably find it a hell of a lot more easier to go to their mums and dads and say, look, I'm depressed, or mum, I'm starting to see things and it's really getting on top of me, and things like that. But the point I'm trying to make, the whole purpose of this video, is that don't label everyone with the same brush, because it seems like whenever some average person out there, some average person that might be a bum or bad-minded person, as we Jamaicans say, suddenly gets a bit angry, or their boss fires them, whatever, and these people never had mental health problems to begin with. They don't even come into the category of mental health. Just because some average person has a bad day at work and suddenly decides, you know what, I'm going to do my boss in, or blah blah blah, all of a sudden now they're thrown into the same, they're labeled at the same they're labeled in the same kind of community as people with mental health. It doesn't work that way. It honestly doesn't work that way. Mentally, people with mental health really are just people that are suffering. They need help. The last thing they need is TV or some uneducated average fool, really, kind of labeling them without getting to know them. You know, you don't know the person. I was in the car with someone the other day, and they were telling a certain person, someone that they were talking, someone they're close to, oh, don't go with that person because they suffer from mental health and all of that. Well, what does that mean? Why would you not go with them? What does that mean? What I mean is, you know, they have mental health, so you've got to worry about them. But do you have to worry about them? You know, I'm not going to get on here and speak on behalf of every person with mental health, because I'll be honest with you, I can only truly speak for myself, and there are probably people out there with mental health issues that you do have to worry about. I do understand that. I do understand that. But what I'm trying to say is, there's certain average people out there that don't suffer from mental health that you need to worry about as well. You need to worry about those people as well. It's not just people with mental health. There's people out there with no symptoms of mental health whatsoever. You need to worry about them as well. You know, funny enough, that same person said to me, sometimes when you do your videos, you kind of stick your eyes out and you do this kind of stuff. I stick my eyes out sometimes in my video because sometimes people say things or do things that are so crazy that and I was trying to think of an example I can give you. Right, so listen to this example. Imagine that you were in a bar, and or you hear a story. Say you hear a story on the internet, or maybe you're in a bar and basically you see this little guy walk up to some big guy. In fact, you see a big guy walk up to this guy, small guy with his girlfriend, and maybe he tries to, you know, from a distance you just see like him just interrupt this couple having a talk, and the big guy turns around and said, oh sorry, the small guy, say it's the small guy turns around and says to the big guy, look, what are you doing, man, just go away, I'm speaking to my girl, just go away. And maybe this guy, he's trying to kind of be a pest, you know, he's trying to start something, and the small guy's there with his girl, and he's like, look man, just walk away, and then just leave it, man. And then so look, just walk away before it kicks off or whatever. Now imagine that this big guy now is a lot bigger than the smaller guy, that when the small guy turns around or whatever, goes to walk off, the big guy then runs, punches him in his face from behind, okay? Now imagine that the small guy then takes that blow, and he then turns around and he comes at the big guy and he starts throwing all these punches and this and that, and he's getting advantage on the big guy. Then imagine like about 10 brothers all jump in and start kicking this small guy. So they've come to protect this big guy that was bigger than the smaller guy to begin with. That's also sucker punch the small guy. They've come to protect him, and before you know it, there's 11 guys all stomping on him and all of that. Now imagine that the big guy then gets up and he looks down at the small guy on the ground and he goes, you know, you're a punk, yeah? And spits on him and starts kicking him and all of that. And then he walks off like he's some sort of bad man. He's like, you know, you're a little pushy, and he walks off like he's some sort of tough guy. And I'm not necessarily imitating a black person here. Could be like a Cockney guy. Could be, yeah, mate, you know, you don't belong in this country, mate, yeah? You don't belong in this fucking country, yeah? And all of that. And imagine he walks off like he's some sort of tough guy, this or that. Imagine, you know, if it was real life, you may jump in, but let's assume that maybe you saw it in a YouTube video, this or that. You're gonna be shocked. Your eyes are gonna pop out your head, and you're gonna go, oh my gosh, like who does this? So when you see me in videos and you see me stick my eyes out like this, it's to say, who does this? The last person I done it with was a woman called Candace Owens, because she said that George Floyd, she doesn't support George Floyd, and it wasn't just him, it was a few other black people that died in the hands of police as well. She don't support them and they shouldn't be praised and everything else. Forget about them being praised. They're black just like you, Candace, and they died due to racism, due to white supremacy, that you went into some sort of parliament in America and kind of denounced. You said there was no white supremacy. It's these kind of things that make my eyeballs stick out my head, and I think, I don't understand it. How do us as human beings do things that are so low yet are so confident? Which brings me to my new thing. Before this is the last thing I want to end it on, okay? There's a few brothers, a few leaders that I had a little bit of respect for in America, not over here, and some of them recently have come out and said, you know, when if people are mentally ill or have mental health problems, they're weak and they're this and they're that. And again, my eyes have to stick out my head again, and I have to say, what the hell are you talking about, man? What did I say in I done a video? It was either the perfection philosophy revisited, or it was some other video that I done. But in the writing under the heading, I said to people, I said, listen, yeah, if you're in a situation where, say, if 9 out of 10 black people, for example, aren't raised without fathers, and you're fortunate enough to have a father, then what you should do is you should, every day, you should say, thank you, Lord. Thank you that I had a father there. And you should thank your father as well. Go to your father and say, thank you, Dad, that you were there. Because there's a lot of other black men that are unfortunate that they're not there. But where do you get, but some black leaders in America now, all of a sudden, now that they've become popular, because I guarantee you, they never had this kind of, they weren't brazen enough to discredit people with mental health or to put them down when they first started speaking, become public speakers. Now all of a sudden they've got 1 million followers, they're bad men now and everything else. Now all of a sudden, rather than be grateful and respectful and say, you know, guys, as a public speaker, say, you know what, I was fortunate, I know you guys were raised with your mum and things like that, and it must have been tough for you. And I don't want to think about what it's like, because my father was my rock and he taught me a lot of things. Rather than that, they're suddenly getting online now and they're talking about, boy, you know what I mean? Listen, I ain't no mummy's boy, you know what I mean? My mum didn't raise me, ain't no, you know what I mean? I ain't got no vagina, I ain't no mummy's boy, yeah? Your mum, boys, black people that were raised with their mums are soft and they're weak. You know what I mean? I was raised with a man as a father, I ain't no, you know, I wasn't raised with my mum, yeah? I wasn't raised in no skirt and all of that. Now they're online and they're talking like they're some sort of bad man kind of thing. And you think, again, my eyeballs are sticking out of my head. And they're talking about people with mental health. There's a lot of black people with mental health. Because of the discrimination and things that we go through, there's a hell of a lot of us with mental health. Now these black leaders are talking about people, you know, people without dad, people. I was raised with my dad. I ain't raised as no mummy's boy. You know what I mean? These feminine males and all of this kind of stuff. Some of them were fortunate enough to have gone to good schools, and again they're talking about, I went to a good school, I ain't no bum and all of that. And it's the kind of, it's the sellout coon Uncle Tom mentality. And this is why I struggle with my own people sometimes. I do struggle with them. But I'm going to get into that in another video anyway. I'm going to do another video. I'm going to label it. I'll label it. It will come anyway. I'll do another video on this because this is important. But for now, that's what I want to say about mental health, is that I just want to end it on this, is that, you know, be careful when you're throwing out the term mental health, because you're throwing it out there like everyone's the same. It doesn't work that way. Your best friend, James, that you've known for years, could have mental health problems. Sometimes James may be aware of it and just doesn't want to tell you because it doesn't impact his life in that way so much that he needs to tell you. And James may have it and not be aware of it. And it wouldn't surprise me, because I just did a video on karma. It wouldn't surprise me is that as these keyboard warriors are sitting down typing all of these messages on the keyboard, that some of them themselves may be suffering from mental health. It would not surprise me at all. Okay? Because there's a lot of people talking about things and they have no knowledge on what they're talking about. There's a lot of these keyboard warriors online and they're saying, you know, mental health this, and they should all be locked up, and why was he given a second chance and everything else. They may suffer from mental health. It just hasn't impacted their lives in a way where they're unable to work. Because that's where the whole diagnosis starts to come from. That's where people start to say, well, why is he unable to hold down a job? And the whole process of diagnosis comes from there. Okay? But I've been in jobs where there's been many people that are quirky, eccentric, and not too far off from it. but it's not my business to go around judging people. The last thing I'll say is that this one's going to tie into another video that I'm done as well, what I'm about to do, called Can You Trust the Matrix? And that's that there's a lot of people that go to doctors and the doctors kind of discredit them. The doctors fail to validate their feelings or concerns, or truly listening to what the person's saying. And some of these doctors aren't qualified enough to be dismissing someone. Some of these doctors aren't qualified enough to turn around and say to someone that's pulled the high out, i.e. myself. When I first went to my doctor, nearly cried, everything else, because I was at an all-time low. And this is going back about 13 years ago, and she turned around and said to me, she almost talked down to me, basically. That's the best way of putting it to you. And I come to realize several years later, she wasn't qualified to actually give me her own personal advice like I was a son. What she should have done basically is referred me to someone else. She should have said to me, if you feel this way, let me refer you to this person and speak to them about your problems. A lot of these doctors that people are going to sometimes and talking about their problems are not qualified enough to deal with their problems, and sometimes give their own personal advice, which is illegal, which can be really, because if my doctor talked down to me and said to me, you know, maybe I was making it all up, and be honest with you, because she was so authoritarian, the government actually put this woman in this position. She'd gone to school for God knows how long. Who was I to challenge her? I said, well, if she's saying these things, then it must be true. I must be lying to myself, or I must be weak, and because there's no way she can be in that position, qualified as a doctor, knowing everything about mental health and injuries and anatomy, and then tell me that I'm wrong, because she wouldn't be there if that was the case. That was the case. Okay, so sometimes you can't always, if a doctor doesn't know what they're talking about, your average doctor, okay, then what the hell does some bum on the street, some average guy that can't even spell mental health, what the hell does he know? And that's the point I'm going to end with. Sorry if I ended it with something negative, but that's how I feel when I see these newspapers kind of, you know, jumping on the bandwagon about everyone that's suffering from mental health should be locked up. Okay, that's not the case. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you around for another one. Peace.